is New Jersey.
What, you mean compared to Hawaii, where I was before? It's not very exotic. It's a great place, though. I love the Northeast, even though a lot of the main reasons I moved here, like dancing tango and going to Broadway, going to the Met Opera, are kind of on hiatus for 6 months to a year, probably.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, but yeah, but man, I like it here, even though it was a nice change of pace to be in Hawaii for those 18 years that I was at Bishop Museum.
All right, well, we've started streaming. We'll get everything started. So welcome to everybody, and Mike in exotic New Jersey. Welcome to eConference 19. And so today we've got again, a little bit more laid back conference. One of the good things we're running into is that we're finding that we have so many recurring session segment hosts that they're actually starting to get back to work now. And that means that we have slightly shorter meetings and there's fewer people available. This is a good thing. At some point when we can't have an e-conference every week, if it's sounding garbled, then let's just change that up. All right.
It's quite garbled.
That should be better. So as long as you guys can hear me clearly, one of the things that we're happy about is that the fewer people we have available to participate online conferences, the more people that are hopefully in their domes starting to get things working. So we'll say that's a positive thing for all of this moving forward. But today we've got a few smaller things to cover. We've got a presentation from Marco about the International Day of Planetariums, an update from IPS about the virtual conference, of course, was announced in the past weeks. Big conference, first week of August, so a little bit of discussion there. And then sort of our main focus today is beginning the process of compiling all of the reopening and cleaning resources. We've sort of got the first thing about what people were thinking about doing, and now as we get more and more sites that are coming back online, would love if you can share your stories, if you're about to open, if you've already opened, just what it's like. We've got a brand new folder in the Dome Dialogues Google Drive that you can drop information into, and then we'll be able to send that out and have that be collaborative as we move forward. And then I think we've got one segment today, one recurring segment, but it's the good one. Don't tell Mike Smale I said that. But it is the long German words of the week with Anna Green. So we'll be excited to have another trio of fantastic words this time around. But before we get into the meeting proper, I do want to officially turn things over to your friend of mine, Ian McLennan, about the new position that's opening for the Yerkes Observatory. So Ian, I'll turn that over to you, and then I'll share the Domel post on screen so people can follow along.
Okay, thanks very much, Michael. And I'm happy to have this opportunity to bring everybody's attention to the fact that Yerkes Future Foundation has just started advertising for a new position of executive director for the Yerkes Observatory. As almost all of you will know, of course, Yerkes Observatory was operated by the University of Chicago for 120 some odd years. And in 2018, they terminated that relationship and just simply closed the observatory. And so a local foundation in Williams Bay, Wisconsin, was formed, the Yerkes Future Foundation, with its head, Diana Coleman. And they've been very aggressively pursuing the opportunity of restoring the observatory, both physically and programmatically. And that process is well underway now. They've completed their negotiations and agreement with the University of Chicago. Now the YFF, Yerkes Future Foundation, has complete control over the future of the observatory. So that's good news. But they will have a huge effort in front of them to raise money and to bring a staff together. but they're well on their way to that now. Um, the position of executive director will have quite a focus on management and on fundraising. And anybody interested in that position should have a demonstrable background and track record in fundraising. So I won't bother reading the particulars of the job description. It is online. It's been posted on Domel, and it's also posted on the IPS website in the careers section, as well as it will be posted in the American Alliance of Museums and ASTC, the Association of Science and Technology Centers. So it will be well advertised over the next several weeks. Anybody interested can contact Diana Coleman directly through info@yerkesobservatory.org. And this is the reason I'm involved in this now is my consulting associate, Bill Peters, and I have put together the preliminary master plan for Yerkes Observatory. And we've just completed that now. It's concentrated on a kind of a 3-year plan plus a 7-year notional plan beyond that. And it envisages such things as a planetarium with an open deck observatory and a pavilion for contemplating the unique landscaping architecture of the place and so forth. So it's a very exciting project. Williams Bay is a lovely place to live, and it should be attractive to somebody out there, and maybe one of you or somebody you know. So I'll leave it at that. And thanks, Michael, for the opportunity of bringing this to everybody's attention.
Of course, Ian. Yeah. And of course, just kind of given the historical and scientific importance of the observatory, it's great that we can see it kind of coming out from the other side and coming out better. So
it's a real good news story. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Ian. Our first talk today, Marco from Costa Rica is really, it's one of the great things about the e-conferences that we've discovered. It's like it's brought people together we wouldn't necessarily get to meet on even the regional or international conference basis. And so Marco's been kind of chomping at the bit to give his presentation for a while. And so now everything's kind of worked out. So I'm going to turn it over to Marco. It's the International Day of Planetariums 2020. So Marco, take it away.
Thank you and good day to you all. What I want to share with you today is about a report of what happened and what didn't happen on International Day of Planetariums 2020. So I'm start sharing my screen. Okay, I think there it is. Most of the techniques that I'm going to use today to make this presentation, well, Michael showed how to do these things, so he is the one to congratulate or to blame, whatever. Well, so we have our event for this year. It was originally scheduled for March 9th, and by that time, the virus was already spreading fast through the world. In fact, many of the people who were going to participate were from Italy. We had a report from about at least 23 planetariums that were going to present. This is the list that you have here. And there were many from Italy, but they were already closed by the week when we were going to do this. So I got notice at least of 2 planetariums that could actually carry out the event. One of them was Rijeka in Croatia, and the other, well, ourselves in Costa Rica. And just because we were late in getting the virus and because we kind of hurried it up, so we could achieve doing that. In the case of Croatia, they actually made an interesting activity, a very complex, for 2 days of presentation. Give us some photographs and videos of the event. So like we got a formal notice that they carried the event successfully. And in our case in Costa Rica, we chose as a public school that they wouldn't be able to afford maybe to take us to have all these presentations, and they were very grateful, and they really collaborated a lot with us to make this happen. So it was a very nice, interesting activity with them. About 300 kids that day. This event, I could carry it out on March the 4th. 2 days later, we got our first virus case here in Costa Rica, and 3 days later, schools were closed. So we just could do it. One of the things that we had organized for the event was a small common program, an introductory full dome production that we shared. And here we made the English and Spanish version. And there are some colleagues, in fact, I have here Guilherme from Brazil, he's here with us. They collaborated translating and narrating the program. It's still available. There's a link for this in where you can download the 1K and 4K resolution full dome versions. And since many of you may not know about this, I want to show it to you. It's just 2 minutes. I will show you the original English version so you can know what was it about. And I made a special edition for this program for today, just for you, in which I combined all the languages translated. It's very interesting. So we're going to see first the original one, okay? Here we go.
Right here and right now, a special moment and a special place where we can travel anywhere, anytime. This is our planetarium, a magical tool that carries our hearts and minds even to places where we wouldn't be able to go. It has been a century full of wonder since the first planetarium was invented. The planetariums use complex mechanical machines to project the night sky and its movement. The fascination of its views has motivated many brilliant minds in our societies. At any age, our first encounter with a planetarium is a magical and decisive moment. For decades, the study of the universe has been the specialty of planetariums all around the world. And now technology has expanded our capabilities to use this wonderful canvas to turn it into anything we want. We can visit virtually those places that will never be reached and travel anywhere in time. Planetariums allow us a clear view and understanding. We can use them for education, industry, celebrations, and we can definitely have a lot of fun with them. So sit back and enjoy our planetarium wonders.
So the voice you heard is Sabina. She made that English and the Spanish versions of it. She was supposed to be in Canada, in Edmonton right now, right? As of today, she is turning 11 years old. And she was basically born in a planetarium. So she and her sister. So they already heard and saw your video. Okay, thank you. So next, I want to show you the special edition I made for this program, which combines all of the voices. And I also changed it, not to a full DOM format, but a standard. So I had to change some of these scenes for them to match more properly. So it's very interesting. Here it goes.
Is there supposed to be audio going with this?
Okay, well, that's it, a special edition just for you. And what did we learn from this? Well, I myself found out that it was very feasible to make an international collaboration between all of us to make things like this. And now that our 100-year celebration is coming up, so I think maybe things like this will come up between us. We are also developing many new techniques during this year because of the virus and all of us trying to learn different things. So I think this may improve what we can do with future International Day of Planetarium events. So we're just training to become better planetariums. That's what I learned from this. So thank you very much for your attention.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Marco. One of the questions that came up was whether or not whether there was supposed to be sound for the second video, which I think there was, and B, if you would be able to make that available somewhere that we could be watched or kind of used in a.
Oh, sorry. So the second video didn't get the audio?
No.
Oh, sorry, you should have. But I can share it directly if you want to have a couple of minutes for it.
Oh yeah, this is gonna be a short e-conference anyway, so we'll wait for high quality content.
Okay. here it goes. Just give me a signal if everything is okay.
Right here and right now, a special moment and a special place where we can travel anywhere, anytime.
Это планетарий. Волшебный инструмент, который переносит наши сердца и умы даже туда, куда попасть невозможно.
Tillsammans kan vi lyfta blicken och beundra vår värld. Här kan vi ställa de stora frågorna och sen försöka hitta svaren till dessa.
Os primeiros planetários usavam um sistema mecânico complexo para projetar o céu noturno e seus movimentos. A fascinação com sua visualização tem motivado muitas mentes brilhantes em nossa sociedade.
A qualsiasi età, il nostro primo incontro con un planetario è un momento magico e decisivo. Per decenni lo studio dell'universo è stata la specialità dei planetari di tutto il mondo.
Und nun hat die Technologie unsere Fähigkeiten ausgeweitet, sodass wir diese wundervolle Leinwand in alles verwandeln können, was wir wollen. Virtuell können wir die Orte besuchen, die sonst nie erreicht würden, und wir können in jede Zeit reisen.
Los planetarios nos ofrecen una clara vista y entendimiento. Los podemos usar para educación, industria, celebraciones y definitivamente también podemos divertirnos mucho con ellos. So sit back and enjoy our planetary wonders.
Oh, there it is.
Okay, so we'll see everybody on Friday. It's been a great e-conference. Like this, just no way we're going to we're gonna follow that up. So any questions for Marco or reactions in that sense? A lot of very good a lot of good reactions there in the chat.
I was wondering about the meaning of the text. The different languages, were they each kind of progressing to a different statement, like the English version, or were they repeating the same meaning?
Okay, no, it was the original text. So it was a progression, yes. Maybe we could have that video with all the languages, but make English subtitles for it.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, okay, I'll do.
It was amazing without the English subtitles, so wow.
Actually, it could have subtitles in all the languages.
Oh, that's too much though.
Just to be fair, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I will make the English subtitles and share it in the International Day of Planetariums Facebook page. So it will be there.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Marco, for absolutely moving experience. Much appreciated. And of course, as Marco mentioned, had things gone as planned, a good number of us would be in Canada right now, enjoying the, I'm gonna just check it out right now as to what it's like right now in Edmonton, weather-wise, just so that we all know. It is currently 66 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees Celsius in Edmonton. While I look out the window and it's 96 degrees here in Central Florida. So it's just a fun time for everybody. So we could be in Edmonton, but not to be, of course, but we do have Mark SubbaRao here, of course, president of IPS, to talk briefly about the not replacement, but certainly the way forward in a year like this, the IPS virtual conference in August. So Mark, turn it over to you.
Thanks, Michael. And Marco, that was amazing. And Sabina, she's incredible. I wanted to narrate all of our shows now. So, but yeah, pass along like how amazing that was to her. So we're not in Edmonton. It's upsetting to all of us, very upsetting to me. But a lot of work occurred from the entire community in putting together our academic program. And we really want to at least capture some of that. And so that's really the goal behind the IPS virtual conference. Hopefully everybody's heard the announcement and got an email about the status of their paper submissions. We are affectionately calling this, at least internally, VCon 2020. Well, what are the key things for you to know? Well, one is it's free. If you're an IPS member, at least it's free. So we definitely are aware of the financial challenges everybody's experiencing. So we'd like as many people as possible to participate. Now, the challenge when trying to make an online conference for an organization that spans the entire world is this goddamn round globe we live on, which makes time zones really hard. So we're playing around with a lot of different ways to do this. The initial concept was to go for 24 hours straight, but there was some pushback. Michael led that pushback, thought that was crazy. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go for 24 hours, but we've just given you a little rest in between. So that's why one of the advantages of being a virtual conference is that we can give you a break in the middle and you can go back and get your work done. But we also shifted those start times, and we did that to basically spread the pain of this conference throughout. So anyway, you got 2 months. Start resting up now because you're going to need your sleep during this week. So here's just an example of what those times look like in different cities, so you can get an estimate. And so everybody's going to have to deal with at least some staying up in the middle of the night. But one thing we really, even though we've sort of timed the conference to be convenient in different time zones, we really are encouraging everybody. We want you all to attend the entire thing as much as possible. So it'll be fun, right? I think so. Hopefully, if you had an accepted paper or complete session, at least the leaders of those sessions have all been emailed and should be contacting all the presenters. Because one of the great things is that we're going to have no parallel sessions. Side effect of that is that we have to shrink the time. So you're going to have to work out how to deal with that shrunk time. We are creating what we're calling a virtual poster session, which will essentially be recorded videos. We will have, we have it now, but there's no content on it. IBS has never had a YouTube page, but we're going to start a YouTube page. And the conference sessions, our intention is to make all of that persistent. So in the past, we never recorded presentations, but now we should have a good record of everyone's papers. And the other thing that we're strongly encouraging is for people to submit their written papers before the conference as well. And that will allow us to have the written papers available with the e-conference as well. And I think that, especially given the time zones and everything, I think being able to read the paper while the presentation is happening will be a great advantage. Let's see. So yeah, so basically we're keeping the academic content from the Edmonton conference. In some cases, formats won't allow us to have all the content, all the workshops in particular, but basically almost all that content will either be in the form of recorded video or a live presentation, almost all, 90% of the accepted papers. And we're gonna add a couple of sessions as well, just to reflect the things that have been happening in the world. And in particular, a session related to the challenges and of the pandemic, and also a session, a sort of what we're calling an anti-racism session. So that's basically what I have to present, but very happy to take questions for that.
And of course, as always, if you have a question in the chat, or you can raise your hand in the participants window, and Sean, go ahead, or not.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to ask Mark for panel discussions, because I'm supposed to be on a panel discussion. Do you still, we have sort of a preliminary description, but you would want folks just to submit their full write-ups for that as well, in addition to regular papers?
Yeah, so I think you have your choice there. If you want to create a single larger paper, or you could have individual papers, and that might depend on the nature of the panel. Either is okay.
And also, just because I know there are several in this call, could you talk about vendor opportunities?
Yes, and so we have a couple of sponsorship opportunities with regard to this, and we've tried to keep the sponsorship fees pretty modest, and those fees will be split 50-50 between IPS and Edmonton. Edmonton, of course, took quite a hit with all the planning they did in this conference, and the portion that is going to IPS will go to our restricted funds, the funds that funded this year's COVID mini grants, and it will allow us to offer a mini grant program again next year. There are two types of sponsorship. One is a session sponsorship, which would be sponsoring an hour of programming, and you would get, as part of that, the ability to present for 5 minutes out of that hour. Actually, most of those are already purchased. We only have a couple available. And then actually recently rewrote, based on some of the vendor feedback, the nature of our second opportunity, which has to do with sponsoring the virtual poster session. And as part of that sponsorship, you get to upload, we're now allowing vendors to upload a 10-minute video that would be persistent on the page. So we'd have vendor videos. We asked that the ones in the session, or the presentations, not be a sales pitch. They be more about how we use the software and new innovations in the field. But the videos in the vendor area could be more of a traditional kind of showing off your product.
Any other questions for Mark?
Is there like a link for the papers?
Yeah, yeah. So there are some guidelines on the forum which give you a rough link, but we actually are pretty flexible. So that low end to high end is a factor of 10. I think it's something like 2,000 to 20,000 words or something. I forget exactly, but it's on the submission form.
All right. Anything else? And if not, of course, the main thing to remember is that if you are in North America or Europe, the dates are August 3, 5, and 7. And if you are in Tokyo or further to the east, it is August 4th, 5th, and 7th, because of those pesky time zones on our pesky round Earth. So again, hope to have you all there. And if not, certainly it's a worthwhile, even if you're not a member of IPS, to participate and join and have an opportunity for that. So Mark, do we also have, will there be an official plenary meeting, business meeting during the time as well?
Yes, in some capacity. We're trying to figure that out. The big challenge is we're going to have to shorten that. And so right now we're trying to figure out how do we shorten and contain all the things we sort of need to contain. But yes, there's going to be that. And I probably should have mentioned there's going to be something special recognizing Edmonton. And we think it probably has to do with the opening. Well, we'll keep that a secret for now, but it'll be cool. It'll be very cool.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark, for coming out today and giving us the update. And of course, as things continue to update, one of the things you'll notice, of course, is if you look at the e-conference schedule, we end on the 31st of July. We're ending before IPS, so that any sort of resources that we have, we can port over to help that opportunity as well. So if there's any updates, of course, Mark, you always have a platform here for updates. And then, of course, if you need any information, we did put the 2020 VCon link in the chat, ipsplanetarium.org/page/IPS 2020. So with that, we'll move on to our main portion of today, which is sort of an open-ended discussion on how facilities are reopening, what you're doing with cleaning. One of the things that we wanted to share, and I will very, very quickly put this up on the screen, is on the Dome Dialogues Google Drive, which is bit.ly/Dome Resources. I'll take you right to the main page. We've condensed everything under the COVID-19 resources folder. So if you click on the COVID-19 resources, inside there will be the reopening roundtable resources that Patty was so instrumental in getting us the notes for. And then today, any resources that you might have, any stories, if you want to, upload a narrative of sort of how your reopening is going, please feel free to do that. All of that can be placed in the facility cleaning and upkeep resources. And that, of course, is available to everyone. Marco, go ahead.
I see you have there a multimedia file folder for sharing.
Yes.
Okay. So would you like to have a multi-language version of the full Dome video we saw, so you can use it in your domes?
Yeah. So there's a full 15 gigabytes of space on there. So unless it's like an 8K master, I think we'll be fine. But yeah, it's open. And again, if you have content that you'd like to share for anyone, please feel free to do so. That's why it's there. We'll go in and make sure that everything's kind of clean and in the right place and appropriate for public consumption. But other than that, if you have something you'd like to share, please do. Everyone has access to that. So Marco, that'd be absolutely fantastic. So again, it's in the COVID-19 resources folder, facility cleaning, and now we'll just sort of open it up. We'll start off, we want things structured. A good place to start off is with Adam Fans. Adam's been sort of compiling quite a bit of information and resources about dome cleaning and facility reopenings things. So I'm going to let Adam kind of have the floor for the beginning and then just go right into a more open-ended discussion. So Adam, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Hang on one second. I am posting a link. So in the chat, there's a link to my Google Drive. I have updated this folder from last Thursday. So now you'll see a new and an old folder. So I left the old stuff in there, but the new folder is more appropriate, I guess, or more up to date. So more phone calls, more research, and it really comes down to, the issue about cleaning seats is what they're made of. A perfect world is not comfortable, but perfect is they're hard plastic seats and you just hose them down with whatever you want. It doesn't matter, but we have cloth seats. So the issue is the difference between sanitizing and disinfecting. And that's important. Fabric essentially cannot be disinfected. It's too porous. The best you can do is sanitize. That said, what are the right materials? There's a lot of options out there, I'm sure. One of the documents, which was from the Absecon, or Absecon, who makes our fabric for our seats, and Irwin Seating and many other seating places, they're recommending a couple of different products. I was looking into their concentrate, and it's not the one I said last week. It's a different one. It's Oxiver TB RTU, which means ready to use. Be aware, there is another product from the same company that has a TB in it, but it's a different beginning name. So it's not that product. But with the Oxiver TB, it is hydrogen peroxide based. It's very safe. It's probably the best kind of product to use. There is a caveat. You can't find it. I can't find it. There is a list on there I talked to the company. I talked to people there, and they list all sorts of places that you can get it. And I'm not calling all those places, but if you look online, you can't get it. And there is no concentrate version really of the Oxiver TB. And there's a reason. So there's no concentrate. The dwell time on that is 1 minute, which means that your seats, whatever they're made of, need to be wet for at least 1 minute for this product. That's good because the seating companies do not want you to saturate their seats under any situation. So then it's like, okay, you want the liquid to be on the surface, wet for at least the dwell time, and then it can air dry. If it dries prior to that, you gotta look. You're wasting your time. I know it's not the best product, but bleach needs a 6-minute dwell time. And I have all my notes that I'm reading from in that link that I have. There's a PDF document that is these links. Also, there's a thing with residue. Well, the Absecon, they say you don't have to wipe them down. Well, when I talked to the company for their product that they recommended, the lady said, yes, you need to wipe it down because there's a residue. How much of a residue? Well, you're not saturating a surface, you're just getting a fine mist on it. So there may not be that much of a residue, and it's really dependent upon your situation. So the key is that whatever you're using has to stay wet for whatever the dwell time is. Alcohol was not recommended for porous surfaces. Okay, that was brought up with another thing. The other is, how do you get it on there in a nice fine mist in an affordable way? Well, I found 2 methods. One, I found the holy grail of how to adapt a garden sprayer to do a fine mist. And the link is in there, and so are documents that have it. If your garden sprayer has what's called the T-jet system, which is what farms use for spraying crops, I found an adapter it's $1.51. It should work. And then it goes to an 1/8 inch female threaded opening. And then I found the right size nozzle to go in that hole. That is a misting nozzle. That's $2.21. This is plastic, but it's designed for low pressures. There are some nozzles that are designed for extremely high pressures, like 4,000 PSI and higher. I don't even know how you do that. But no, this would work with a garden sprayer at 40 psi, which is a typical garden sprayer. This will spray 0.48 gallons per hour. And that's if you just, constant spray. That's the limit. And it makes 50 micron droplets. So it's a very fine mist. So it's a proper application. Another a way of getting a mist was from a company called Lafferty makes a fogger, and this one is a compact one, so it's handheld, and the 612 is different than the other similar product. They look identical, except this is a low flow, a low volume fogger, and it requires an air compressor, but like a regular one that you might have in your workshop, as opposed to a specialty one that's higher pressure. But it's, it's spraying. And then you can regulate the spray with different they're called metering tips, a little plastic insert that regulates how much flow. The sprayer will be $80–90. Yeah, I see. What about electric paint sprayers? You could use them. The key is that it has to be a very fine mist, and you also need to be able to control it. Some of the sprayers are just, they're too much. And it's, yeah, I see. What about regulations? Well, there's really nothing about seating. It is it's a lower risk than the room itself. The theaters are enclosed, small spaces, especially smaller theaters. If you don't have very good airflow and someone's sick, and if you have people without masks, that's going to be 100 times worse than any non-cleaning you would ever not do. I'll put it that way. So, like if you didn't clean anything, it's still a greater chance to catch something if somebody's sick in the room and they're breathing, and it's vaporizing into the air if you don't have good circulation. So, I mean, that's kind of the key. But it was like, there were a couple of things. So we're kind of back to, I found a good way of getting a fine mist. It's extremely affordable. The garden sprayer was $32. And with this attachment, it will do a fine mist, but then it's the product itself. And, and bleach, like I said, I don't know if I said it, bleach needs 6 minutes dwell time. So bleach needs 6 minutes. This Oxiver TB needs 1 minute, which is it's a better link, mating with the amount of misting that you'd be doing while not saturating the seat. I'll put it that way. You have to put more liquid on the surface, possibly, if you used bleach. I know bleach is not the best thing in the world, but it also comes down to what can you get. You can buy a truckload of Lysol spray if you can find it, but that's essentially it. All the documents are in that link. I don't want to take too much time. A lot of phone calls and a lot of weird research and finding things. And by the way, the Oxiver is it is a sanitizing for fabric, not disinfecting. So even this Oxiver, which seems to be a really great product, will not disinfect seats. It sanitizes, not disinfects. And that's I have a little description of definitions there. It says protection, watch out for lenses. Right, you don't spray it all over the place. The benefit of either that fogger or the sprayer method is that you can directly spray, and you can do like a whole row of seats all at once. Go, just kind of mist them and see what the liquid level is on it. So it is controllable. Obviously, you don't want to just spray it everywhere.
And so any additional particular questions for Adam before we move on? Yeah, the amount of research, perfect. That's why we wanted to start with you, Adam, and kind of work from there. So as we're sort of taking that information, we're going to try to help compile that even more. Anybody else who's kind of come up with a plan or has a plan that they're currently utilizing for disinfecting or sanitizing or cleaning, or if you're open, sort of what have you been doing and what have you been dealing with that? Oh, Paulette, go ahead.
So I'm hiding out in the IMAX so that I can take my mask off. So we are working on a July 10th opening. And right now it's less about sanitizing the building and just getting everything clean so that when we do go through and sanitize, it'll be much easier. So some things that you might not think about is dust in weird places that can fall off, and when you're trying to sanitize sort of those odd places, we're running into a lot of that when we're cleaning our museum. And so I know that the state of Michigan has recommended that museums actually bring in a outside cleaning service before they open their museum, a deep cleaning service, so that everything, like I said, is easy to clean and sanitize. We plan to have little spray bottles and paper towel at all of our hands-on exhibits so that people can wash them when they're done, and wash them beforehand if they feel uncomfortable. Of course, the planetarium is closed, but the IMAX, once we're able to open this theater, we will be seating everybody every other row and then switching. And our engineering theater, our 4D theater, where we actually have just vinyl seats in there, which is amazing. We'll be seating everybody every other row, and we're able to turn off the effects for certain rows. So we're going to be utilizing that to reduce the amount of air that's blowing in somebody's face or blowing germs across the room.
Excellent. Is anybody at a facility where you're going to be opening within, say, the next 15 to 20 days, 2 to 3 weeks sort of thing? And sort of how are you preparing for that? Steve, go ahead.
Yes, thanks. So we got the green light from the state this morning that we are included in what they call phase 4. So we're going to try Saturday, and we've avoided having the planetarium classified as a movie theater because we have movable chairs. So we've only got 26 seats in a 65-foot dome spaced out 6 feet. Relating to what Adam said, maybe he knows about this already. We had a seminar yesterday from the Rochester Community Foundation with a physician named Dr. Stuart Weiss, who has a company called iCrowd that advises on this kind of stuff, pandemic safety. One of his points was that fine aerosols hang in the air until the ventilation system changes the air. So the interval between audiences for the air to change is crucial. So in planning our schedule, I've been saying we've got a lot of demand from our museum summer camps. The one thing that's immovable, 2 things that are immovable, one is the capacity of 26, the other is a 45-minute gap between audiences for the air to change. And we'll see how all that works. We're going to try 1 week, then 4th of July weekend, we're not going to try anything, and then we'll see what happens after that.
Congratulations on getting the green light. Renee, go ahead.
Hi all, I'm in Illinois in Peoria, and we are also moving to phase 4. We are moving to phase 4 this week, and so we had started opening to members, just 10 members at a time tickets, and we're doing that now. We've had some members visiting, and we require face masks and social distancing and lots of hand sanitizing and all of that. But July 1, we are reopening to the public, and we have to have limits on a number of guests, 50 guests in a basically like a space. So the way we're reinterpreting, well, the way we are interpreting that is we'll only allow 150 guests in our museum at a time, because they could be spaced out in between the different galleries that we have. And then it's a little bit strange because the capacity of the planetarium, I have only 100 seats in my planetarium. It's a 40-foot dome. But the guidelines say that it can be 50 guests or 25% capacity. But even though I have 100 seats, the fire department rating for the planetarium is like 350 people or something. So we could fit 50 guests in there legally, However, I don't think that's safe, especially because we need to maintain 6 feet distance between family groups. So we're going to allow family groups to sit next to each other, but they have to have 6 feet between them. I have removable seats. We have the Adler chairs. So what we'll do is space our rows of seats 6 feet from one another. And then we'll have an usher helping make sure that they leave like 3 seats in between family groups. I don't think we'll be able to fit 50 that way. I'm still technically on maternity leave, so I haven't been able to measure how many I think we'll be able to fit, but I think it's going to be closer to 25 guests, maybe 30, if we're maintaining 6 feet between family groups. And then another thing in the Illinois guidelines, it says that if guests are seated in a theater, they do not have to wear their face masks once they're seated. And that makes me feel nervous. So I don't think I'm going to let people know that when I'm presenting shows. I would prefer that my guests wear their masks in the theater, especially because we all know that the longer you're in an enclosed space, the more dangerous it is. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Adam, okay, you're muted. I just want to let you know, Renee, if you look in that link I provided, I also provided two documents that relate to our theater and how we're dealing with seating. So we're going to do the similar thing. We have a 40-foot dome, 102 seats, but we're blocking off every other row. We can't remove our seats. And they're going to be for groups. So like a family or a couple or a single person. And it's 7 total groups and up to 20 people, period. And even that was kind of a push on that. But it visually shows kind of how nice and easy it is to separate people, and it makes it obvious for them to understand where they're going to be going, that kind of thing. So, and we're also shortening when we do reopen, we're going to shorten our shows. We're going to limit it to about 35 minutes and an hour in between each show block. So we have the air circulation, and we also limit the amount of people that are in that enclosed space. I'm going to mute now.
Great. Anyone else? A few things in the chat. Mike Murray, of course, up in Bay City, Michigan, 50-foot dome, about 150 seats, being able to max out at 50 people. But of course, if you've got people in your dome for an hour, like he says, you want to make sure that they definitely have their face masks on. Susan Button, you had posted a little bit earlier the IPS resources page for portables. So Susan, either you, Mike Francis, Marco, if you guys want to maybe speak a little bit to the portable dome section portion of our community, I think that would be very, very useful.
Well, I gathered some information from different users and from some of the conversations you people are having and translated it a little bit into portables. One of the things we can do is increase flow of air by using extra tubes that I described that process in one of my columns before, which I referenced there. And also I'm getting information from manufacturers and what their recommendations are. So Digitalis sent me some information, and ePlanetarium or Discovery Dome, they actually put some information about how far to seat people apart, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what's on that page, and you know, it's all free for everyone to look at.
Thanks.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Drew, go ahead.
Hey, Nashville had entered phase 3 on Monday, and actually our Science Center managed to get categorized into phase 2. So we've actually already been open for a week now. And so our theater is 63-foot diameter, 166 seats. And with every other row, that leaves 82 seats available, but our capacity had been set at 70. But when you think about that, doesn't leave a lot of room for social distancing within a row. So we've actually reduced our maximum capacity down to 50. When we started getting crowds of 40, we started to see families starting to look around and make decisions about where they're going to sit. Once we got to 50, we had some families actually during the show move to seats they weren't supposed to be in just to get a better view. In fact, we had 3 rows of people right next to each other, which was a little scary. So we are actually going to get some rope and actually really physically block off those seats starting next week. One other thing, I'm kind of curious, our health rules here in Nashville do not require that our guests wear masks, and our administration has decided to follow that recommendation. I'm curious if anyone who is expecting to be requiring masks, is that in line with your municipality that you are, or is that something that you've done on your own? And if you have done that on your own in exceeding your local requirements, that's my question, if that made sense.
Yeah, I think we heard you drop out a little bit at the end, but sort of, are you, for those of you who are requiring face masks, which I assume is everybody at this point, is that sort of a local ordinance that you're following, or is this sort of a facility by facility decision?
That's all I had.
Oh, no problem. And then there's a bit going on in the chat. We just want to make sure that, you know, if you're not reading the chat, you're here. And questions about disclaimers. Colin asks, is anybody asking their visitors to sign a disclaimer before letting them in? Shiloh, you're in, Shiloh, where are you located? Is it?
So I'm actually in Tucson, Arizona. We're with Flandreau Planetariums. I believe that's the university is doing, just general, because we're on part of the university campus.
Mm-hmm.
Although we still technically don't have an open date, which is a little concerning and frustrating. But a lot of the kind of signage and stuff that goes on our doors will be kind of outlined by the university itself.
Okay, gotcha. So I've just gotten a message on the side here. We're going to do something a little unorthodox. We're going to actually stop the discussion now to get in a segment so that we can go back to this, because I think Anna is like 12 minutes away from not being able to do her segment. So we're just going to briefly jump to long German words, which Patty will love, and then jump right back into the discussion so that we can have a little bit more open-ended. And when, you know, I think everybody's gone a little bit longer than we expected today, which is great. We don't necessarily want to just kind of cut it off and not be able to come back to it. So all the way from Berlin, ladies and gentlemen, it's your favorite part of the week, long German words with Anna Green.
Thanks for shuffling for me. I appreciate it. Yeah, so let's roll into some long German words. Michael, thank you. Our first word this week is die Röntgenstrahlung. Die Röntgenstrahlung. Is that X-rays or gamma rays?
This one's a landslide right now.
Hallöchen, Howard.
All right, looks like we've got most of our votes in, probably about 80-85% of the votes in. About 70% say X-ray, 30% say gamma ray. Anna, what is the correct answer?
It is X-ray.
Does the lung have anything like, that's just how I'm gonna, if I see that word ever again, I'm just gonna see lung and just combine it with an X-ray and like.
The UNG is an ending, which it's one of the only ones that like every time you see it, that is the gender that is associated with it. So like with most languages I've learned, they'll say like, oh yeah, this is generally the case, but then there's all these exceptions that you have to memorize. And with UNG, it's always feminine, always, which is great.
All right, so you can see 69-31, a nice victory for X-ray today. All right, word number 2, here we go.
Oh, I didn't know that, Gary. Well, if I had known that, I wouldn't have picked the word. So full disclosure here, after I sent this word to Michael, I thought better of it later and wished that I had saved it for one of the weeks that my native speaking boyfriend was going to say the word, because I'm going to get tongue-tied, so bear with me on this. Der Gleichgewichtszustand. Der Gleichgewichtszustand. The state of equilibrium, or is that carrying capacity?
Like the way Brian, like the way he pronounces some of these words, like he's trying to do it as nonchalantly as possible. Like
He's not
that's cool.
even trying, he's just doing it.
It's just, you know, it doesn't matter that there's 67 letters in this word.
No, not at all. What kills me, and it's because I'm a native English speaker, particularly an American native English speaker, is this S and the Z right next to each other. So the S makes a Z sound in German and the Z makes a sound, and those two together. No, thank you, Colin. I do not want to try Welsh. I will butcher it like crazy.
You know, Colin, if you want to try Welsh words of the week, it kind of fits with the alliteration that Mary started so well with the podcast. So, all right, so we've got most of the votes in, and it is a dead heat between state of equilibrium and carrying capacity. So, Anna, what is our correct answer?
It is the state of equilibrium.
There we go. There we go. 2 for 2, guys. Very nice. And then finally, our final word of the week is a good one. It's a good one. You may have to expand your window for this guy. So here we go.
56 letters long, so not our longest, but so this is die Vermögenszuordnungszuständigkeitsübertragungsverordnung. Die Vermögenszuordnungszuständigkeitsübertragungsverordnung. So is that the Wealth Allocation Delegation Regulation? Oh, that flowed nicely. Yeah. Or the Rent Price Limit Ordinance, which doesn't flow as nicely, but is something as a resident of Berlin, I am very much appreciating, because the rents just kept getting higher and higher, and they're not allowed to for the next 5 years now. So yeah.
Nice, nice.
I like the way you read that. Wealth Allocation Delegation Regulation. Wealth allocation. Okay, sorry.
Supposedly, Anna has a great rap flow, but that's just a rumor. It's just a rumor.
No, I think you heard said rumor wrong. It was, I don't have a good.
Okay. So if there's an IPS in Berlin, we will not be hearing you rap.
There would have to be an awful lot of beer involved, and probably not even then.
We don't want her to rap. We just want her to sing.
I would read said rap, but I would not
sing rap. Oh, Renee would like to know if you could say this word one more time for us.
Oh, sure. Die Vermögenszuordnungszuständigkeitsübertragungsverordnung. That one, 57 letters long, that one's easier to say than the second one is.
Unbelievable. So with 85% of the vote in, about 40% of you say wealth allocation, delegation, regulation. The other 60% say rent price limit ordinance. Anna, what is the correct answer?
The rent price limit ordinance, or the rent price limit that's been applied, is the Mietendeckel. So this was the wealth allocation delegation regulation.
Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, so I guess that'll work.
Yeah,
and then, of course, let's kind of go to the gallery. How many of you were able to get all 3 right? Oh, we got at least one person. Steve, going ahead. I do see a hand up, so.
Are you talking to me? I was getting
Yeah.
back to the reopening business, but I don't want to derail on a second.
Okay, well, yeah, now that you'll be first in line for the reopening. So with those 3 words, Howard George 0 for 3. That's
We'll work with you, Howard, before you make your trip over here.
Your corporate overlords are not very happy with that. So with that,
English in Berlin, so we should not have to worry there.
So thank you, Anna, for the yet another segment of Long German Words of the Week. And so, of course, that means we get to let her go and then jump right back into the equally as important reopening business. So now that Anna's just gone, Steve, going ahead.
Yeah, my hand was left up from long before. I wasn't trying to interrupt Anna.
Oh, no worries. But yeah, now that we're back in. You could, if you want to, go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah, this is just a comment on the mask requirement. So it's the law here, but our attitude about it is that not that we're telling you, the audience member, what we think you should do for your health. The mask isn't about protecting you. It's about the environment we've agreed to create for the rest of the audience and to protect me and the other people working there. So we've tried, our software isn't quite up to it, but to force you to check a box agreeing before you buy a ticket that you will have a face covering and you will comply with instructions from the staff about where to walk, stand, and sit the whole time you're here. We'll see how that goes. But that was the distinction. It's not about us telling you how to protect your health. It's the rules we are creating for this environment. And if you want to come, this is the deal.
Mike Shanahan, let's go to you now. I think kind of getting that out of the way with a little summary of what's going on with GSCA and sort of their reopening discussion. So, Mike, go ahead. As we're trying to get there we go. Perfect.
Yes. So this is a Giant Screen Cinema Association. So IMAX type theaters, but of course the line between IMAX and Planetarium is getting thinner and thinner. And Clark Planetarium was one of the 2 key reporters on that. And so the Clark did reopen back in the middle of June 15, doing a soft opening with members. For both their IMAX and their Planetarium, that they're restricting themselves to 3 shows a day to allow cleaning in between the shows. And they're restricting themselves also to about 30 people in each of their 2 theaters to allow for spacing out. They're only doing, this is a big debate, more in the giant screen business, but some planetariums are affected by this. They're deciding not to do 3D movies right now in their theater because of the issues of distributing 3D. And they're not doing assigned seats, but they're having people kind of choose their seats and having ushers ensure social distancing. At the time of the meeting, they'd only been open for 1 weekend, so this is just 1 weekend's worth. They were recommending face coverings, but not requiring face coverings for their visitors. And I'm thinking it may evolve that more folks are going to wind up doing like Steve was doing, saying we're going to require it at some point. I'm curious to hear. I mean, there was this discussion, which I thought was a really valid one, about we're putting a lot of energy, which is good, into cleaning, but really it's the respiration that can be blocked by a face mask. That's probably the most significant issue that we all have to be dealing with. They do clean between shows, and staff are required to wear masks. So that was Richard Cox, I think, the operations guy at the Clark Planetarium in Salt Lake City. And then Cosmosphere in Hutchinson, Kansas, has been open now for 3 weeks. They're also restricting their theaters to 30 seats per show out of 100 plus. Ushers are reinforcing social distancing. They are, interestingly enough, they're doing a show every hour in each of their 2 theaters, their Planetarium and their Giant Dome, or their Giant Screen Theater. So shows hourly from 11 to 5. maybe as to plan for the fact that it was only 30 seats per show. You're going to need a lot of shows to meet demand. They are doing the Night Sky Live is their planetarium show that they're doing hourly currently according to their schedule. They're having audiences enter one set of doors and exit through another set of doors. They block off every other row. And again, they're using the ushers to enforce social distancing. Their theater is, their movie type theater, digital theater is doing Ancient Caves, which is a really exciting new show, and also Apollo 11 is being run. They used Biocontrol, a company called Biocontrol, to do a polymer mist spray. They're going to bring them in once a month to do a mist spray, and the idea that it would kill viruses and bacteria good for 30 days, according to the vendor. Again, they are also recommending but not requiring masks for visitors, although they are requiring masks for staff. And then the final one was, again, the Omniversum in the Netherlands, which is a large dome theater complex. And they opened officially on July 1, but they've had test runs already. And it was really eye-opening that nobody there wears masks at all, not the staff and not the public. And even in the streets, it's very rare to see anybody with a mask on. One interesting tidbit, though, that I wanted to mention is that at the Omniversum, they have the projectionist observe the audience during a show. Sure, he has a mark of the seats, and they mark off as the show is running what seats are occupied for that show. They hand that list to the ushers, who then know what seats have to be cleaned instead of having to clean all the seats. That was their way of figuring out how to do the cleaning. So that's a summary. It was actually an interesting to see a different business giant screen film and how they approach the same issues that we're dealing with in the dome world.
Great. Well, thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Which I think is a good segue into, this is, of course, GSCA, Giant Screen Cinema. For those of you, and thanks, Sean Latch, for bringing this kind of the forefront again. For those of you who are connected to schools, specifically colleges and universities, we're getting now through summer semester, heading towards fall or fall quarter, whatever it is. How have reopening discussions on your campuses been affecting your planetarium? Is it that you're going to try to open when the campus is open? Is it going to be a later opening? For those of you who are on college campus or high school campus planetariums, if you give us some insight, I think that would be really, really useful.
I can say that for us, I mean, the University of Maine is currently planning to have some face-to-face classes in the fall. They're expecting that to be sort of a mix of some face-to-face, but some also remote delivery. The planetarium is hoping, based on the state guidelines and the universities, to reopen in August. And there's an art museum that's attached to the university that's going to try to open in late July. But based on our facility size right now, for instance, technically I could be open, but there could be a maximum of 5 people in my building, which 5 public, which doesn't work. So by August, that will be up to 15. My dome seats 50, and by measuring out the physical distancing, we figured we could do about 14 people in the dome. So that's kind of what we're looking at. But so I am exploring opening in August and working through our university processes right now, and also checking into airflow, cleaning. One of the questions we're going to have is whether our custodial group will be able to do cleaning as often as we'd need to if we wanted to do multiple shows in a day, because typically they only do cleanings once a day. Or whether that will be planetarium staff, i.e. me, because right now it's me, and then I occasionally have part-time students. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Great. Thanks, Sean. Shyla, go ahead.
So we're kind of stuck in a bit. We're waiting for the university to make their official announcement. Many of you may have heard the University of Arizona pretty early on stated that we will have fall classes on campus. But of course, if you also saw the news, we're doing super great with our COVID numbers, like super, super great. So I think a lot of that's now up in the air. Currently, we have a probably weekly meeting. We're trying to think about all the things to go over so we can reopen safely. One of the things that we're trying to figure out with our dome seats at 140 people, is how many people can we safely allow in the dome, and keeping spaces and everything in there as well. But it looks like we probably won't open to the public until after university classes start. We do have 2 classes tentatively scheduled in the planetarium. The biggest question will be A, will there be in-person classes? And B, we actually don't know what the enrollment numbers are for those classes. So that's something else that's been really curious. If they're going to be using the full dome system to teach classes, what's the enrollment numbers on those classes? Because typically our 2 classes in prior semesters sat all 140 seats. So the question will be, what do they drop that enrollment number to? I have one more quick question though for anyone else who's doing this. Everyone who's got science centers attached to their planetariums or science center exhibit type things, when you're looking at capacity numbers, think about how many people you want to allow on your floor versus also in your theater. Are your 2 numbers in tandem, or are you keeping them completely separate? Like planetarium can seat this many people, science exhibits can have this many people. Because we're just trying to figure out, do we do time tickets that include both the planetarium and the floor, or how does that, we're just trying to think of ideas, and I'm curious if anyone else has come into that issue.
I don't know if this will help. Our planetarium is we require general admission, and the planetarium ticket is an upsell. So our science center is doing time tickets. I think it's for every hour they're letting in 150 people, and that is pretty much unrelated to what our capacity in the planetarium is.
Yeah, and for us at the California Academy of Sciences, I don't know all the details yet because I think they're still working out a plan for how they're going to deal with all that. And a lot of that is like operations and stuff, which isn't exactly my purview. But we have general admission, and then it's free to go to the planetarium, but we do have specific times for the planetarium, and you do have to get a ticket for a particular time. So I think the plan is there's going to be a capacity for the building in general. They're going to be regulating how many people come into the rainforest. They're going to regulate how many people can come into a particular show. And then we're also going to have fewer shows. Normally we have like 6 dome shows during the week, and like, I think it's like 8 or 9 or so on the weekend. And we're going to be doing 4, and that's it. So it's going to be a lot fewer, and like only 1 presenter per day and stuff like that. So.
And for just to kind of get the chat into the stream, Scott Mitchell over at Orange Coast College in California, campus is going to keep them shuttered probably until January, so that's a kick. Mike Francis, who of course is our resident Galileo, Actors Equity says that legitimate stages might not be open until the next year, which is saying something. Of course, you know, you try to social distance a show of 1,000 people, and then they, you know, see what happens there. And Carol Holmberg, Carol, you're in South Carolina, correct? Yeah, so and you know, kind of a unique experience. 1 entrance, and so they've said just 1 family at a time in the building. So, Carol, if you kind of want to speak to the unique nature of that.
No, I'm sorry. Only 1 planetarium, only 1 at a time in the planetarium.
Got it. Okay, that's a little less, a little less.
So
severe.
yes, a little less, but the emergency entrance has steep steps, so people are going to have to pass each other, entrance, exit. So only 1 family at a time in the planetarium once we reopen.
Gotcha. And then Shannon Schmall from, of course, University of Michigan, unsure when they can open, but Shannon, of course, is on the reopening committee. That seems exactly like something you'd be primed to do. And of course, I'm assuming, Shannon, because of university, state university system, what U of M might do, does that have any connection to what's going to happen to the other state schools? Or is it right now sort of a campus by campus decision?
So I'm at MSU because I think you have.
Oh yeah. I'm thinking of Ann Arbor, and you're in Lansing. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
I think it's still university by university. So like they're so that are making the rules. Like for instance, Whitmer stated like many weeks ago that labs could start reopening at like research labs could start reopening, and MSU just gave permission for like our physics labs to reopen because of all the hoops that people had to jump through. I think it's similar at U of M and other schools, but I think it's down to each school individually.
Okay. Colin, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Hi there. This is a bit of an update from the UK because we just got word that things can start opening up from the 4th of July. Museums are allowed. I've heard that one of the local museums, not ours, is planning a 1st of August opening, but we're still not allowed live performances of comedy, drama, music, that kind of thing. So probably Planetarium is not going to be for a while, but we have to balance up the cost of extra staff versus income. So likely September, if not well into towards the end of autumn, if not later, for museum opening and possibly fully open. Who knows? So it's beginning to come out of it, but it's going to be a long slog over here.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else kind of go on? One of the questions that got brought up to me kind of quietly in the chat was if any of you have had to deal with, say, changing out air filters or how sort of the air handling systems have been changed, or if they've had to be changed at all in your facilities, whether you've been made aware of something like that. As I scan up and down, waiting for hands.
I haven't had any in terms of air filters themselves. I have reached out to the University of Maine's HVAC department to talk about the turnover. I do know with our building we've had, and Scott Mitchell can attest to this from back when he was here, we've had lots of issues with our heating and cooling over the years. Even though we're a new building, we typically have issues in winter with our heating. Not so much in summer with our air conditioning, but more in winter. But I have been trying to find out what how often the airflow turns over, because they have some control over that. And we're going to be asking them to ramp that up to the maximum, amount of outside air, because we're on a geothermal, and it's energy efficient, which is great for that side, but probably not so good for the side of turning over the air.
Yeah, of course, like we're planetarians, and like the things we know and the things we've come to know over the years, like now all of a sudden we're experts on HVAC and disinfecting and things of that sort. So fun times for everybody. Anything else before we wrap up the discussion? So discussion is supposed to last 30 minutes, and in total it's been about 50. So that's always a good thing. But if not, what we can do is just kind of segue finally into open forum. If there's anything that we haven't talked about today that you'd like to bring up, please feel free. We've got a little bit of time, so that'll work out great. But floor is open. If you want to speak up, all you've got to do is unmute and go on ahead.
I will jump in just to remind folks, virtual hospitality suite tomorrow evening. It starts at 8 o'clock Central, 9 on the East Coast, 6 on the West. Hope to see you there.
Mark, do we have any specific theme for this week's VHS?
No, we do not. But if somebody would like to suggest one, just go ahead and send me a message or whatever, and I'll be happy to do it. But this week is just sort of open forum.
So yeah, so if anything, this will be our pour one out for IPS hospitality
Yeah,
suites.
there you go. That will be the theme. So yeah, yes, the IPS wake. So yeah.
And then of course we've got a second e-conference this week, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 Pacific on Friday. Lieta is going to be joining us, kind of the history of virtual reality and sort of where it's going and how we're utilizing it. And we'll probably have that be a 2, maybe 3-part presentation over the course of the next couple of weeks. There's a lot of cool information. Wanted to share that. And then we'll have the return of most of our recurring segments on Friday as well. But 1:36, I'll call that early. That's as always, e-conferences end ahead of time. So thank you all for coming out this afternoon, this morning, this evening, depending on where you are. And we will keep things going. Everybody gets unmuted. So wait, mute all. No. Now I can't even unmute all now. If you want to say goodbye to everybody, just unmute yourself and have fun. So see you tomorrow night.
Adios.
Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Bye.
Tom. Hi, Tom. Hi,
Bye.
Susan.
Hi.
Nice.
Bye.
Great to see everyone. Sean, your face looks naked. We're just going to say it.
I was doing the same thing the whole time.